Dear auditorium of Riga Aviation Forum, we are back in our studio, and today we have, right now we have a next panel discussion designated to the airline industry and designated to efficiency and green thinking in aviation industry. So today panel we have Director of Latvian Investment and Development Agency Kaspars Rozkalns, CEO of Air Baltic, Mr. Martin Gauss, and Director of Latvian Civil Aviation Agency, Gorodcovs. And one of the consequences of this COVID situation is that we have connected here via Zoom connection Raimonds Gruntins, Regional Director of IATA. Hi Raimond, do you hear us? Do you see us? Yes, so we are online. So today we will talk about sustainability, and I will ask one common question to all of our participants. Before the crisis,
I'm super sorry to interrupt. There is something wrong with the sound because when you're speaking, then there is a delay. You know, you are speaking twice in my microphone.
Okay, so this is a given to our technical stuff. We will fix it, so don't worry. Oh, okay, but let's continue with the question. Before the crisis, we had the leaders in the Baltics. We had excellent connectivity, more than 100 destinations from Riga transit and transfer passengers, which did give us opportunity to fly on destinations. In other hand, would be not available.
30 seconds, so.
Okay. Okay, it will be fixed, Raimonds. So, Kaspars, what we need to do to restore our leadership in aviation in the Baltics and return to development?
Well, yeah, that's the major issue. Definitely is this COVID-19 and how we're going to deal with that in Latvia, how we're going to deal with that in Baltics, and how the world is going to deal with that. Overall, the forecast is not looking very bright because of this all unknowns, because of the sicknesses and this difficult situation. We see that the overall forecast is that tourism is going to be back somewhere around 2023, probably. And again, it depends on how's the world's exit strategy from the COVID-19 is going to happen. What we can do in a shorter term and what we have to do in a shorter term from the Ministry of Economics and LIAA, or Investment Development Agency's perspective, the major case is to sustain the business travel, the needed business travel, and then the tourism is obviously on our priorities, but we have to be very fast and adapt to the situation when we see let's say, the country is probably going out of the, let's say, red zone. We already, in 2-3 weeks ahead, we try to promote in that country the potential tourism destination. Therefore, as a government, it's very hard to adapt to this situation because normally we have to plan like 3-6 months before, and then we can only proceed to action. So. Yeah, this hit is very hard, and we'll have to still discuss, will the tourism industry ever be the same as it was in 2019?
Okay, Kaspars, logical question to Mr. Gauss. How Air Baltic will continue its actions, because you are most suffering participant of this industry. Do we have a chance to restore the traffic we had before crisis?
We as an airline industry will go back to before crisis levels in the next years, so we will see more passengers than before because it's a crisis and a crisis will be over. There's very different numbers by what time the industry will go back. We will see a much faster recovery in short haul. In Europe we see the similar thing in China, where the domestic China traffic is coming back despite that COVID is still around. And For Air Baltic, we had a total stop of flying for 62 days. That was the only airline which was completely on the ground. When we restarted, we saw immediately a very positive effect. We used the time in between to downsize, to make us smaller, to be able to grow out of this again, which we are doing. And we saw a very positive trend until we had the restriction that we couldn't fly to red countries. That has last week been changed, so Air Baltic can now provide the connectivity, and with that rebuild the Riga hub, because Air Baltic is a hub carrier with Riga as the central hub, and this hub function will allow us also to do transportation in Europe, which is not necessarily ending in Riga. So we can take somebody from Munich via Riga to Helsinki and onwards. So therefore, since we now can fly again, that will help us to restore the hub. We will need to have a European-wide rule how you have to quarantine, because the current regulations are making it impossible for somebody to travel, because who can afford to be 14 days in a hotel? There is a EU Commission has issued a document last week which they ask the member states to implement. We strongly hope and lobby with all the different partners, IATA, the aviation industry all over Europe is lobbying to go for a common solution for all European countries, so therefore that air travel can be restored. Once air travel is restored, the businesses will be able to again do business, and it's very vital for the long-term economy. We don't feel it here now, and especially in Latvia we have a very pleasant situation, very low COVID numbers, and the economy is not hit as hard as in other countries. But overall, aviation is a driver for the economy, so we will see business travel come back. On the tourism side, of course, you will not go on a holiday while the country is not considered to be safe, and then you have to come back home and have another 14 days of holiday because you cannot go to work. So I think that when it's fixed, we will see again a very steep rise in passenger numbers as we saw in July, and let's see. We are hoping for a European-wide solution, and then Air Baltic will continue to be successful, and we will be coming out of the crisis, that's for sure. It's just now, is it happening next spring? Is it happening next summer? But that's my prognosis, that latest in summer we will see major changes, because then the need for the economies to recover is there so strong that Europe will find a common solution how to deal with it. COVID is there, and I think it will be there for many, many more years. It's a reality we have to live with all over the world, but our industry will be coming back, and there will be times where we will look back and say, we never thought that we reached 2019 levels, but we will be above these levels. I do believe, because we have 100 years of aviation and we have gone through all the crises in the past.
Okay, thank you, Martin, for your comments. Maris, you as a regulator, this maybe is a bit tougher question for you, but nevertheless, what is your vision how we can restore our operations in a full amount?
So I'll start by saying that our country is a member of various international organizations and bodies. One is being the Eurocontrol, based in Brussels. Since the COVID-19 crisis started, they assist the member states with sharing data and of the actual situation, and also forecasts, industry reviews. So they disseminate this information they call the Comprehensive European Traffic Assessment, which they distribute to the member states, which is right in front of me. So back in March, at the beginning of the crisis, they came up with a forecast with the two scenarios. One is being coordinated scenario, meaning that the member states will act in a similar fashion with the different restrictions in a similar way. And another one is so-called uncoordinated approach, when the member states will behave on an individual basis in a different way. And it's interesting to note that since they distribute this information, this data is coming, that we actually so far followed so-called coordinated approach, which clearly shows that the recovery of the European industry will take place sooner than member states do on individual basis. That clearly was following the forecast line of coordinated approach until the last week, when we see further restrictions, very fast, uncoordinated, and now the forecasts clearly indicate that we are moving to so-called uncoordinated scenario. If we continue in that fashion, this will mean that European industry particularly will recover on a slower pace than with a coordinated approach. So therefore my answer would be coordinated actions by all member states when it comes to the responses to the COVID-19 crisis, because the data clearly shows that it's the right way forward.
Okay, Maris, thank you. And as one of the consequences of COVID, that Raimonds was unable to take tickets from Air Baltic and fly to Riga from Madrid and participate in live. I hope the technical issues are solved now and you are online. Raimonds, from shiny Madrid, what are your comments about Riga, about our possibilities to develop?
Yeah, well, thanks. Yes, I'm online, and you touched the painful point. I would really like to be in person, because I think the confinements that most of the Europeans are facing, actually the global confinements, messes with your head, and you kind of start develop those phobias. You're not being able to connect with people. But jokes aside, actually, I kind of agree. I'm sorry I missed the first speaker, but Martin and Maris, I think the importance of the coordination and strong role of regulator is essential, and I think the key word in this case is regulator. So we have to once again understand that this. What is happening? It's a health crisis, so it's extremely sensitive subject as well. And usually, states would kind of go from zero risk perspective, But as we have known for aviation for 100 years, then the safety is #1 priority for us. So we have this strong safety culture. We also know that if you want to be 100% safe, then you don't operate, then you don't fly. Unfortunately, in the COVID situation, if you don't operate, if you don't fly, if you don't open the borders, in a coordinated manner, that also basically, besides affecting economies, very, very seriously, obviously, this industry cannot operate without those conditions. So I think the coordinated layered approach, risk approach is the way forward, and obviously we have to work together to ensure that those risks are minimized as low as possible, so that the industry is not vector for spreading the virus. But I think it could not be only responsibility of the industry to solve it. What we have done so far is to make sure that the transportation process, both in airports and on aircraft, the risks are very low because of the HEPA filters, because of the protocols that are in place. Actually flew recently with Air Baltic. I think Balstali, it's mentioned already that they have those safety kits. That we have done our part. But trouble would not be sustainable, as Martin mentioned, with 14 days quarantine. So maybe the coordinated approach, which Mars alluded as well, is to work with authorities, particularly IATA, maybe in this case, and try to find viable solutions for testing passengers and avoiding this quarantine, because I don't think that there is such a thing as 100% risk-free zone. But if you kind of ensure that we can open that gradually coordinated, assessing the risk and finding alternative solution, that is the way forward. Latvia has been very successful in combating the crisis, as I have seen it, but obviously it comes at a cost as well. And if we are not finding the 14 days quarantine solution, then simply we are not restarting. Who is going to travel for if you have to be in confinement without alternative solutions, aka tests, for example.
Thank you for your comment, and absolutely agree. If you would like to achieve 100% safety, that means you need to stay on ground, because until you go from the ground, that is a process which needs to be maintained and monitored. But before...
Arthur, can I also add some things that strike me a little bit in the previous presentations as well, that we have been quite critical about, lack of coordination. So, and while there are many areas of improvement in the Europe as well, I still would be a little bit more cautious on bashing, European Commission and EU, because if we are looking from IATA's perspective globally, then maybe not as coordinated as we would like to have. Still, the restart has been taking place stronger in Europe, and I'm not saying that was what happened is perfect, but actually I think considering the complexity and our system, then EASA, ACDC, also Eurocontrol have done relatively good job comparing to other regions. So I think we should also focus a little bit on the positive sides that the regulators have achieved in this crisis. I just want to make this remark.
Okay, Raimond, well noted. Your comment guide me to the next question. Mr. Rozkalns, previous strategies for tourism development obviously need to be based off. We need a new strategy of tourism development, and we need to get those passengers back on traveling and offer Latvia as a destination for broader world. What actions are taken to develop this strategy, this new strategy of tourism?
Mm-hmm. Well, the first answer is we have to understand how's the tourism and travel industry going to change. And here we see this, as already mentioned, the short haul is going to be a priority, and then the longer haul probably will recover a little bit later because of the unknown situations as further on. As we could see, let's say, well, in summer we started this Baltic bubble, then the tourists mostly arrived obviously by car, by some public transport, some definitely by plane, but we see that obviously if the tourist destination in these times of change is very close, you do not have to plan ahead like 6 months, then you can make a decision based on actual data, and then you can go there. Therefore, the strategy is going to be adapted to this COVID-19 situation. It means that the short haul area around Baltics and Scandinavia and Germany is definitely going to be a priority within the EU. Then we have to see what happens outside EU, because most likely there is going to be the unified EU regulation on what happens and how we open up and how we deal with them, manage the risks. And then it means that we'll have to be very fast, very adaptive. For example, we see that, let's say, gradually, but Sweden is coming down on those numbers. Therefore, we already are planning, let's say, more or less in 1 month, it probably, even on this regulation, they'll be on a green list. Therefore, we have to adapt to that. And their short haul destination, the Swedes probably want to travel because they haven't been able to do it for some time, because their government's overall this exit strategy. But this is one thing, and another thing is I think that the dialogue with the industry, with the travel industry, is again very important. So we can talk on our activities, not just write the strategy and then just apply it and do not talk to the industry. But the most important part is to talk to the, let's say, logistic companies, the carriers, these all tourism industry, hotels, etc., etc. So they would be ready for some activities. They would target with their marketing the same areas or similar areas. So we would get a better reach, and this therefore, yeah, very quick reaction, and then coordination between the government and industry is the key things that how we can not just write off the existing strategy, but change or tune it up to the new normal situation.
Just before we will continue with next topic about sustainable development in general, I'd just like to comment that we actually have a marketing advantage now. We have a Baltic bubble. We have very good results of COVID. We can sell ourselves as a safe place for tourism, and I think that is we need to use this opportunity and invest advertising in this market on destinations where Air Baltic is flying well. About sustainable development, one of the lines of sustainable development is the green thinking, reduction of carbon emissions, and there's a lot of talks about taxations for those who pollute the air, and airlines definitely are a source of pollution. Mr. Gauss, what do you think about Europe's approach to this issue in general?
We had a heavy debate about sustainability before this crisis. Now it has completely disappeared because focus is only on COVID. Airlines are fighting for survival. If we look at that, nearly all airlines, also the private airlines, had to take help from governments all over Europe and still need more. Yesterday it was announced that Lufthansa, which got 9 billion from the German state, might not even last 1 year with that, and they need more help. So we have complete different issues than sustainability. At Air Baltic we were leading with flying the most modern and greenest aircraft in the world, so we were preparing this airline for the future, and we are, because we have many more of these aircraft on order. We in-house, of course, continue working on all these sustainability issues of making the air cleaner, of optimizing the process, gender diversity. So sustainability is for us the key topic, but we need to be able to fly before we can demonstrate it, and as COVID is still overriding everything else, we have the headlines in the media about COVID. If we remember the time before COVID, then it was only about sustainability and climate change. I expect this to come back, and to come back much stronger when COVID is not an issue anymore. And therefore I can only advise that we all do not forget about it, that we continue working, because for sure in the generations to come, sustainability is going to be a bigger issue than COVID today, especially for the young generation which do not see COVID as such a threat. They want to see sustainable behavior, and we in Air Baltic, we did I think a big step by investing billions into new airplanes. All we have to do now, we have to let them fly, and then we make this a better place. And coming back to tourism inbound Latvia, we had a very strong argument for the green Baltics to bring people here. Our strongest market being Germany. We are flying already now, we are flying to 5 destinations, but Germans cannot come even for a day or 2 days, because they have to go into quarantine. While if you are German, you can fly anywhere in Europe apart from Spain, because of course you can move around freely. So the tourism which could be here is not coming because of a single-sided quarantine rule from countries where there is no problem. If we look at the difference between Hamburg and Munich, you can just move around freely, but you can also go to Rome or to Austria without any restriction. But if you want to come to green Latvia, you're basically locked away. And we see this very dramatic, because our strongest market, Germany, it's basically going from full airplanes with this restriction now to 8 passengers, 9 passengers on a flight, because why would you go somewhere to then go 14 days to a hotel? So therefore the tourism will automatically come back when you can go to that country, and because we see it in the rest of Europe, where there is free movement, people are moving around and they are going to the hotels, they're doing also tourism activities, but you just cannot do it here today only if you're from Norway or from Finland. Otherwise you cannot visit the Baltics right now, and that is not enough to rebuild the tourism industry.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely can agree to this comment. And my point is that, of course, we need to open more discussions with national health organizations, because if we would like to achieve, as I noted, 100% safety, so the flights is impossible and is seamless to invest in this. But we need to develop a balance between safety and a business. And yesterday, as I noted in the previous panel, yesterday we had discussion with the Minister of Health, and we have a very different situations to compare to the spring. In the spring, it was a total shutdown. It was a panic. It was nobody was aware what will happen, how it will develop. Today, we're living in a different situation. We have a time for thinking. We have a time to develop a sustainable and efficient approach to this crisis, because as you noted, this crisis the COVID will not vanish within a few days. We need to live with this disease for years and just hope for a vaccine. So that's of course is the issue. But I would like to address Maris. Airlines are dramatically fast running out of the cash. And what's your opinion? Is there safety and operational risks from your direct business oversight, the safety of flying? Does airlines will be tended to save on safety and security?
When the crisis struck, it was unexpected, and airlines had to stop their operations instantly. They landed their airplanes where they could and where they were allowed to do so. They parked them where they were allowed to park. So, of course, immediately we all realized that sooner or later the industry will recover, and therefore the clear guidelines were needed. What to do with the missing pilots or outdated terms of different licenses, maintenance organizations, approvals, because where some airlines had to park their airplanes, there was no maintenance organizations available to do the maintenance for them to restart the operations and even to perform the storage requirements, even because the aircraft has to be maintained even if they do not fly, and you name it. Therefore, IATA was asked by the member states and by the European Commission to assist everybody and they developed in 5 different areas or directions. They developed guidelines to the industry and to the member states how to deal with this crisis situation, and that by doing so, the safety is both ensured and also it's being monitored. So we all acted in line with these guidelines, and at this point of time, whatever we did, whatever decisions we were taken at whatever level it was, so the red line is that safety shall not be compromised, and there should be a zero impact of COVID crisis on safety, zero. So therefore, whatever we do, we act without impacting safety. When it comes to the risks, of course there are risks when the industry will start to recover, because a number of them had to lay off people. Those will have to be re-employed, and those will have to be retrained and re-skilled, which the abilities to do so are very much limited because of the restrictions to travel. So therefore, of course, there are certain risks to restart. But since the approach is joint, it's in a similar. We act in a similar way, and also it's being centrally monitored and overseen by the IATA, by European Air Safety Agency. So therefore, the safety will not be compromised. It's not possible.
So thank you. I think it's a very good and a strong message that safety of flying will be maintained, and you as an oversighting organization will strongly oversight. Raimonds, are you here? Still with us? Nice. You already started to mention coordination of this crisis with the European Union level. From our point of perspective, we would definitely desire more sustainable approach from Europe. It's a feeling that there is a lack of competencies coming at European level, because if you're talking about a quarantine, those 14 days or even maybe 10 days, which is a discussion now, we are lacking success stories where this approach is successful, because Latvia is one of the best numbers, and each other solution from the first approach sounds risky and tricky. Therefore, I think we need this one general look, and I think very positive that right now those guidelines are starting to be developed. But Raimonds, again, what would be the direction of European entities, you as a representative of the airline industries, what kind of forces you are using to impact this process?
Yeah, thanks, It's a good question, you know, and I think we all need to keep in mind that this is unprecedented. So it's kind of it's easy to say in hindsight what we could have done better, because when you're facing the situation, then I have full respect of the magnitude and responsibility of the decision. What we are doing, actually, the cooperation with IATA, ACDC is quite close, and I know that in turn ACDC, IATA is on board of CART, which is ICAO body, which Marius is very well familiar with. I also was mentioned by Paul Zali, this Air Baltic signed IATA charter, so the communication lines are quite open. So obviously having this dialogue open, and once again, you know, the trick here is that IATA is they can develop guidance, you know, but they cannot really regulate, because the regulation comes into the responsibility of states. So I would think that maybe having discussions like this, where we exchange views and tell basically what could we do to make the process smoother or more viable, is very important. And some things that when Martin was speaking, he was speaking about the green sustainability, and then how airlines were investing, you know, in your aircraft, and how much does it basically, you know, that we are obviously compliant, and we will be focusing on the sustainability. But the very important question here is that the weight of carrying those measures through also has a cost to it, for example. And again, my personal experience, and I'm only saying because I'm Latvian, I think, and I can be a little bit critical of the state. While state has handled the situation very well, I noticed one paradox, that Air Baltic's crew were actually collecting manual forms of, how do you call it, those passenger locating forms, right? And I thought that's interesting. How much effort would that cost, for example, Air Baltic, to collect manpower? Basically, there's a physical contact. This is maybe a little bit, you know, more risky for the crew. Well done, Air Baltic, for coordinating. But the question is, why wouldn't Latvia invest in a digitalized solution for that? You know, avoiding this unnecessary work stream, minimizing risk, having digitalization form. Can you imagine how the labor, because somebody is actually looking at those papers, sorting those, if that would be already, you know, in digital form? So what I'm trying to say here is that it's easy to look for somebody to solve your problems, you know, from the centralized point of view. But I think we locally on country level can do much more as well, you know, to show the leadership. And if I would ask concrete steps forward, I think Latvia should really consider those digitalized solutions for passenger locating forms, and those could be linked to testing and it just make process much more faster and viable, which in return will allow airlines to focus on their
core business, providing safety, rather than administrating rather laborsome work. I don't know if that makes sense in what you were looking for.
We got your point. Marius is raising a hand. He has a comment about it.
Yeah, exactly. Right now, while we're sitting here, we have a meeting with all stakeholders, police included, because during last week, one of the government decisions was to task the Ministry of Interiors to implement this passenger seat location form in the digital format. So we have started to work on this. Also, we as an agency were tasked to monitor how this works today, how airlines fulfill this new government decision, namely distributing these forms per each flight. So, but yes, in the near future, they will go electronically.
So thank you for your comment. Actually, we are steady going to the end of our discussion, and I have some questions arrived via Slido tool. There's a questions, there's a comments. I will start with one. When the nonsense of 14 days self-isolation rule will be cancelled? Because obvious those who are arriving by car not following those rules, they are out of the control. This is obvious. This is just a comment to the IATA. But it's a very actually interesting question to Mr. Gauss. Latvia state shareholders increase its capital at the company. Aren't you afraid too much state control over your business?
I'm not afraid of state control, because we are very privileged in Latvia that the Latvian state has run Air Baltic since I'm here the last 9 years, all the governments, in a very professional way, because we are run like a private airline. So the state is our shareholder, but Latvian state on Air Baltic has a supervisory board which controls the airline. And in my personal experience, there's not many airlines in Europe which are run from the shareholder the way Latvia does it. The increase in shares, which is a temporary increase in Air Baltic, is something which was needed to survive. So the shareholder increased our equity like all other airlines did it, but it comes with the obligation to sell these shares again. We have to privatize that again. The state needs to collect the money back. We will do this through an IPO, so the shares will be offered on the stock exchange, and therefore that state shareholding will reduce again, but it might still be also long-term for the future that the Latvian state stays a majority shareholder. And as they are running this airline very successful, and all the sustainability decisions, all the modern Air Baltic you see today was always done under the leadership of the Latvian state. So therefore, my compliment to the state, how they deal with that company. I think we are exceptional in the way how state-owned companies are run. And so no problem at all with the state now increasing at the right time their shares.
Perfect. Thank you for your answer. A question to Mr. Rozkalns. How do you see future of travel agencies? Should they switch to incoming tourism, or in other case, Baltic bubble doesn't work?
Right. Well, the travel agencies are probably one of the spheres that are in the biggest jeopardy. Our task is to support and to provide as much support as we can for the inbound tourism. That means that the cash is arriving to Latvia, therefore it is our tourism product export. And this is our major priority and major task. However, from the other side, as we see previously already, we saw what happened to travel agencies such as Thomas Cook. We see that definitely the industry is changing, and the industry, all the digitalization solutions, all these Airbnbs, TripAdvisors, and so on, they are taking over, and for the longer term, the travel agencies, they'll have to adjust to the newer business model. They'll have to figure out these things that appears, and then they maybe work on more individual level, on more individual trips, and how the individual experience is happening for tourists, because the world is going away from this mass destination over tourism to the very individual, more private, very specific, some experience that you are ready to pay more money for somebody who organizes everything, and you just have this experience, but it is more or less unique.
Yeah, thank you. So we are going to the end, and I would just add a remark of today's situation. We are human beings, we are social beings, and we need communication in live. And those who are trying to tell us that Zoom or these internet tools will change behavior of the business travelers, I can absolutely disagree, because frankly speaking, we love foreign hotels, we love lobby beer, extremely expensive, but nevertheless it's very tasty, and humans will return to its travel by any case. We just need to remain our abilities to provide supply function for this demand, because there is no doubt that demand will be. We need to keep supply live and in place, and to be leaders in the market. Thank you very much, and we continue our forum. See you after a while here back in studio. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.